There is. Just with different writing, so actually for us. So they're like less, you know, that's. Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Hopefully, and you ever want to try growing?
Oh, yeah.
So your friends and family can work tomorrow. If you're available, it's late. There's one of them. And then you want I'm always like pushing for like younger kids. It's super cheap. Like I'm like, basically give practicing Hey Rick, so I'm gonna get started. It's only for Mark. Good evening, everybody. I would like to call the special council meeting of December 1st to order. Would you please stand for, December 4th to order? Would you please stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jerry, would you please call the roll? Herman, no.
Mr. Fish?
Mr. Herman.
Yes,
it is.
He's present, okay.
Say here. Here.
Here. Mr. Yaki?
Here.
Mr. Richmond?
Here.
Mr. Vince?
Here. Okay, thank you. I would just first would like to say welcome to the special council meeting. We are going to be discussing a project tonight that we've been working on, the council and I, for several months. And since I've been mayor for the last, I can't remember, since 2023, two and a half years, I guess, about something like that, coming up on 3. I've heard a lot of questions about our internet service in the village. First thing is really lack of choice. Second is pricing. And third is speeds and quality and reliability. And so council and I have been discussing this for a while and decided we should see if we could do something about it. And we had heard some neighboring communities were doing projects with with different vendors to wire their entire community with fiber. And so we decided that in order to make sure we had the expertise to be able to go down this path, we hired Tom Reed from Reed Consulting, who's here tonight to help us do that. And we developed a request for proposal. We sent that out to a number of suppliers, and we had 2 responses to it. Some chose not to respond. AT&T, who's here this evening, is going to speak with us, was one of the respondents. And Chagrin Valley Gig was the other one. Chagrin Valley Gig is actually doing some installations in some neighboring communities in Hunting Valley, as well as in Gates Mills. And so we went through a process where we evaluated those proposals, and council's been deliberating, and we think we have a direction that we'd like to go with AT&T. But one of the things we also thought was really important was to have a public meeting and let residents have the opportunity to hear what we're doing and give input to this process, because as part of it, the village will be spending taxpayer dollars to help make this a ubiquitous access across our community for every home. And when we spend those types of dollars, it's really important to hear from the community about that. So what we're going to do tonight, I believe Tom will kick off the meeting. We'll probably have about total 15 minutes of presentation with both Tom as well as the representatives from AT&T. And then we'll open the the floor to our residents and council, of course, for questions. I will try to moderate that. It's not a large group, so I think it can be informal, but please let me moderate that and call on you. Just raise your hand if you have questions. I'm sure everyone will get the opportunity to ask their question this evening. So again, I'd like to turn it over to Tom.
Thanks, Ethan. Appreciate you all coming out tonight. Very cold night for venturing out for any other reason, but I think it's a good topic. So this is the public meeting, as Ethan mentioned, on fiber to the home, and gonna work, right? Got to keep that door all the way open. Oh my God.
You have to do it manually.
That's horrible. Okay, I guess I'll do it manually. It's working. Earlier, stopped working. That's the way they do something. There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Small technical glitch. All right, so got a pretty short agenda. A little bit just about broadband, so we're all speaking the same language. An assessment of broadband in the village today, the fiber to the home, with financial metrics, and why are we talking about using village funds to help pay for it, and then the bidding process, the results and recommendations from that. So broadband 101, just a couple of things. If you see 1 Mbps, that's 1 million bits per second. If you see 1 Gbps, that's 1 billion bits per second. And if you see upload and download speeds that are different, like 200 by 40 or 100 by 200, that's called asymmetric. You have more download capacity than you have upload capacity. And if you see upload and download being equal, that's considered symmetric. So you'd see packages like 200 by 200 and 1000 by 1000. So that underlying infrastructure, what we all started with was twist pair copper plant that brought us the initial telephone service, and then DSL broadband services. The cable companies, though, figured they could beat that, and they have, delivering both cable TV and pretty decent broadband speeds using this coaxial cable. And the new move is to go to fiber optics. So fiber optics literally are little glass strands. Oh, and we've got some examples of little glass strands.
Copper. This is the fiber stuff. You can sorry, Tom.
Tony. So fiber architecture options. There's one called centralized split. Every home has its own dedicated strand of fiber. Another is it's distributed. Multiple homes will share a single strand. And then what's really kind of the worst in my mind is what's called distributed tap, where up to 64 homes share a single strand. So obviously this is what we recommended, and that's what we budgeted in all of our projections, is a centralized split. So in terms of capacity, I know a lot of people are operating with 100 megabit service, 200 megabit service, and it works fine for you today. But we have to think about the future. So go back to the past, about 1990, when the World Wide Web first started happening, then we ended up with VoIP and telehealth, things like that. If you look at the speeds over those 3 decades, it's been tremendous. It's been a 10-fold increase in speeds from decade to decade. So where we started out at a megabit back in 2000, most people are over 100 megabits today in their homes. So what's next? It's hard to say. Silicon Valley doesn't seem to be slowing down. But that trend line, how long does it go up? I don't know exactly. But you can see that by 2030, we should be a gigabit per second. Well, that's totally believable. A lot of places are selling and getting gigabit per second today, and then up to 10 gig and even 100 gig by 2055. So if you look at the technologies, fixed wireless, satellite, DSL are going to top out at about 100 meg. Cable modem is going to top out a little over a gigabit per second. Fiber today is operating at 400 gigabits per second. So tremendous capacity there. So when we think about the infrastructure planning horizon, we want a solution that's going to help us today, but also be appropriate in 2055. We want a 30-year solution if we're building infrastructure, in my mind. So that's why we recommend deploying a technology that can do 10 gigabits per second. So you have a good chance of having a long life of that infrastructure. So broadband in the village today, as Ethan pointed out, you have reasons to complain about the broadband infrastructure. So this is speed test information from a company called Ookla. Ookla is very clever. They created this free speed test capability. If you ever Google term speed test, almost always takes you to Ookla. They do it for free, and they sell the data on the back end. And we do a lot of work analyzing that data. And it's a little hard to see, but the darkest red, and these are the best speeds ever seen at these given locations that tested. The darkest red isn't even at 10 megabits per second. So the darkest red dots really have had a bad time with internet service. The deepest green is only 200 by 50. So to get the really deep green, you don't need a super fast connection. And you'll see that a lot of the locations in the village are not getting what you would consider to be adequate broadband. And when we then grade it by the census blocks in the village, you'll see that there's a lot of yellow, a little bit of orange and red. But those yellow locations are probably cable modem. Generally, with cable modem, they have an acceptable download speed, but a very slow upload speed. So you do have some red and orange, which are unserved and underserved. The yellow would be considered underserved as well. And there is none of the deep green. None of the census blocks get to the deep green. And again, the deep green bar is not very high. It's only 200 by 50 to get to that level. So fiber to the home financial metrics, there's a cost to pass. So that's like building a water line or sewer line. There's a cost to pass the home, and then there's a cost to connect the homes, cost to serve. So what the telcos look for is a cost to pass that fits in their financial models. Very long lifetime, very efficient use of the services. And I'm giving you an aerial example. These are cables being attached to existing utility poles. The same applies for underground. There's a cost to pass and a cost to serve. So key metrics in the village here, got 1,405 locations. 1,330 of them do not currently have fiber to the home. There is a little bit of fiber to the home in the blue areas. That's where AT&T is bumped out from their central offices with some fiber to the home. We estimate about 39 miles of fiber needed for this. And that comes out, it's a really important number, 34 locations per fiber mile on average. Okay, so that's really becomes a critical number for the financial thinking of the ISPs. So the question of how low can you go? So if you plug in that fiber is going to cost $100,000 a mile, some people can do it less expensive, some people will be more expensive, but it's just a good budgetary number to look at $100,000 a mile. So if you look at how many locations there are per mile, if there's 50 locations per mile, you're spending $2,000 to pass that location. If there's 30 locations per mile, it's 3,330 feet. It's very linear, right? It's just costs the same amount to build the fiber. How many locations? Divide that, and you figure that out. Even at the low end at 20, it's $167 a year over 30 years. I think it's still a great investment, even at that very low density sort of number. The ISPs are willing to invest between $1,000 and $3,000. Most of them on the lower end of that they will spend per household. So you get above $1,000 to $3,000 per household, and the ISPs are like, well, we're not going to do that. There is no business case. We would need a subsidy to do it. And Moreland Hills falls right in there between the 30 and the 40. So we'd be estimating $2,500 to $3,300 a location. What are the ISPs willing to invest? So if we look at the village specifically, we think it needs 39 miles of fiber approximately. So here I bracketed it. Cost per mile of $60,000 per mile, all the way up to $120,000. So total cost to build in the village between $2.3 and $4.7 million. Locations per mile is 34. So we end up with a cost per location between 1770, almost 1,800 a mile, up to about $3,500 per household. Sorry. So Locations per mile, there's 34, so we end up at about 1,800 to 3,500 per location. So here I pegged the ISP investment at $1,500 per location. That shows us then a gap. How much money are we missing to be able to get an ISP to do it? And you'll see we have a gap of between $260 and $2,000 per location. And that total gap then comes in between $300,000 and $2.7 million. So it turns out that both of our bidders came in at $1.1 million. Both bidders felt they needed $1.1 million to justify building to every location in the village. So the bidding process and the results, as Ethan mentioned, we issued an RFP back in August. We got responses from AT&T and Chagrin Valley Gig. Those were reviewed by council. We interviewed those ISPs. We had a scoring team that met on October 7th. And then we had continued Q&A process. Spectrum did not respond to the bid. They have expressed an interest in doing better in the village, kind of vague, but that's all they really offered us. So key technical similarities between the two, both of them are fiber to the home, which is what we wanted. Both of them offered centralized split, which is what we wanted. Both of them offered the latest technology, which is called XGS-PON, which reached 10 gigabits per second. Both of them offer managed Wi-Fi in your home as a standard feature. And both of them offer full mesh Wi-Fi option if you need it because your home is larger. Financial comparison, both of them came in about $1.1 million of village investment required to tackle the project. Now the Chagrin Valley Gig's a little more complicated. They were $2.5 million, but then they had all these public funded discount options of in-kind things the village could do. We think we can get that down to 1.1 million from the 2.5, but it's still a little vague. AT&T would just enter the market and compete. Chagrin Valley Gig assumes a 65% take rate. That means that 65% of the village residents would subscribe to their service. And that's in their financial assumptions, their deployment assumptions. We think that's completely unrealistic. That you're in a competitive environment, you've got Spectrum already here, AT&T coming in, we've already got AT&T and Verizon offering fixed wireless services here. You're not going to get 65%. In a rural market, you might get 65% where there's no competition. I haven't heard anybody think they can get 65% in a competitive market. Deployment timing is a big issue. So Chagrin Valley Gig is linear. They are going to do Gates Mills next once they're finished with Hunting Valley. Then they'd hit Moreland Hills. So if the timeline held, we'd be dealing with the middle of 2030 before deployment would be finished here. And that is subject to change based on the take rates. So they say they can reprioritize builds based on take rates. AT&T, what they offered us was that it'd be 2 years. So from whenever we signed, so I pegged it as January 2026, 2 years, and they commit to it. May happen faster, but they'll commit to 2 years, and that's a firm contractual commitment. Behind the scenes, there were some pretty big differences. AT&T would be operating from these old central offices as points of presence. So points of presence where all the electronics for the village are. AT&T has 3 points of presence serving the village. They're all basically almost tornado-proof kind of buildings. So these really rugged buildings that handle almost anything that you're going to see. The pop structure that Chagrin Valley Gig is using is a pole barn in Hunting Valley. We've confirmed that it is a pole barn. We think that's very vulnerable to high wind events. AT&T has a resilient global backbone. Chagrin Valley Gig, the only thing we could really come up with is called cobbled together. AT&T, most of the equipment's going to be mounted on those existing poles. In Chagrin Valley Gig, I know everybody likes the idea of underground, but we're talking about large vaults. Every yard would have a 17 by 30 by 30 inch vault. And every 1,500 feet in the public right of way, there'd be a 36 by 42 by 36 vault. That just seems like a lot of infrastructure to me. So AT&T would be above ground, except in parts of the village that where all the utilities are underground, it would be largely above ground. That is vulnerable to wind and ice damage, just as you've seen with electrical outages and outages from Spectrum. Chagrin Valley would be below ground. That's not invulnerable. There are vulnerabilities there as well from lightning strikes and from physical errors. Basically, someone drives a sign through fire, that kind of thing. So this is kind of what AT&T would be doing. It's called overlashing, where on their existing cables that are in the community, they run an extra piece of metal wire that would lash the fiber to their existing facilities. So pretty low footprint impact in their deployment. Chagrin Valley Gig, they'd be boring primarily. And this is what a boring rig looks like. They'd be setting up these boring rigs and boring in the village. It would be in the public right of way and new private easements. Service packages and costs were pretty starkly different. So the Chagrin Valley Gig prices are assuming we can achieve the maximum public funded discount, which is 33%, and they're still significantly higher than AT&T's rates. And AT&T also offers those slower packages of 100 by 100 and 300 by 300. We think a lot of village residents would opt for that in the early years of a network. So we did form a scoring team. It was Ethan, Bill, and Rick. They're the ones who attended both vendor interviews, so they made kind of the natural scoring team since they were a part of the whole conversation. It was a unanimous selection of AT&T. You'll see the scoring, all the scores agreed. Not a huge delta, but a big enough delta to say that AT&T was a pretty clear winner of this evaluation. So we really have two options at this point. We can contract with AT&T or we can do nothing. So if we contract with AT&T, we have fiber to the home in every village residence by the end of 2027. If we do nothing, and I don't know how much they'll divulge, but AT&T will keep bumping out into parts of the village that have a high enough density to justify it. So you will see AT&T continuing to edge out into the community. Charter, Spectrum, Charter is the parent company around Spectrum. I've competed, worked with ISPs competing head to head with them before. They are incredibly tough competitors. They are not just going to roll over and go, oh, well, AT&T is taking all our business. They will compete fiercely. They're going to come in and offer special deals. They're going to try to lock people up into multi-year offers. Every time you call to cancel, they're going to offer you new deals. They will compete very fiercely to keep your business. And it's true in the do nothing as well. Of course, they're only going to be competing where they're facing competition, right? So for the people who have the AT&T option, they'll compete fiercely. And that's a very good database they keep. So you call them and say, hey, I want a lower rate. They'll look at your address and go, yeah, we're your only choice. So
I'll just say I did exactly that. I called Spectrum at one point to try and renegotiate. They said, hold on, let me look to see if anyone else serves your residents. They said nobody else serves your residents, so we're not gonna entertain any competition or any deals. Yeah. So that's 100% true. I experienced it. Thank you, Tom.
Appreciate that. And in the do nothing, there are definitely going to be some portions of the village where the lots are bigger that just aren't going to get fiber. There are a couple other rates. So the standard rate from AT&T, 55. What I showed you were the auto pay rates. If you agree to do auto pay, so I can't imagine why you wouldn't do it to save $10 a month. I'd probably do it even if I wasn't saving $10 a month, just so you have to deal with that bill every month. But you'll see their auto pay rates. And then there is a mobile bundle rate too when you go into the really high speed services. So feel the investment pays for itself. So fiber to the home will definitely improve the reliability, consistency, and the speeds that are available. AT&T and Spectrum, as I mentioned, are going to compete fiercely. That's all the residents are going to gain from the competition. Whether you switch to AT&T or not, you're going to gain from the competition. It was pointed out at one of the last council meetings that if you look at 14 households and project $25 a month savings, that's $420,000 a year that residents should say, whether it's because Spectrum cut their rates or you switch to AT&T, you're going to be about $25 a month cheaper. So really you've paid off the investment in about 3 years. And it does also generally improve property values, fiber availability. So our next steps, public meeting, council review, contract negotiations if we move forward, and it's the public meeting.
Thanks a lot, Tom. I appreciate it. Tony, would you like to?
Yeah, I brought some show and tell today for folks to see. So as you can see, my name is Tony Costanzo. I'm the Director of External Legislative Affairs for AT&T here in Northern Ohio. My office is located in Cleveland. I brought my colleague today, Randy Kazako, who's the Director. So I kind of just wanted to piggyback on what Tom was talking about and pass some stuff around. And as you can see, this is what's existing right now on the poles with copper. As you can see how thick it is. This is a 100 pair on copper that people use for DSL and telephone service. Anybody here still have a home phone? Okay. No, I didn't think so. But when I started off as a technician, I used to repair home phones, the cords with static on them. People used to stretch them over the stove to cook, and pay phones and stuff like that. Now, home phones and pay phones are gone and cell phones are back. But you can see fiber is a fraction of the size and a fraction of the weight, where this is glass and this is copper. So as we continue to sunset technology on copper, because nobody uses it, we're losing money on it and getting a heck tax or tax on us for it. We're switching over to fiber. And as Tom mentioned, it overlays with the strand over the top of it, and you don't even notice it when they do it on the poles. And there's a machine that does it. It's pretty seamless. So, you also brought a board here and what people can. Does anybody here have fiber, by the way? Just start rolling it out a little bit. A few of the but I made a little board here. So this is basically the house, and this is what you can see expect to see at the pole. So after this strand, as you can see, is ran, it goes on the pole to this little gizmo. This is what we call an FST, a fiber serving terminal. And this will be at the pole, be mounted on a pole. Squirrels love these. They make nests on them and all that for the birds. But when it's all said and done, as we build out in areas, you'll see one of these. And when you order service, you'll have a service drop, almost like a phone line. It's a fiber drop that'll connect. It's all plug and play. There's no splicing or anything. Just plugs in one of these ports that you want to plug here and plug right in there. And then we put one of these little gizmos on the house. We call this a fiber serving network interface. I like this. Of course I did. But anyhow. I love this with banging me on the knees. I'll get it. But anyhow, there we go. The fiber drop. The pole comes to the house, attaches to the house. It's probably already got one of these little ram horn hardware things on there, so if the wind doesn't take it. There's one on the pole, and we run it up in here, and that's where it terminates from the pole. Into the house, then they'll run a fiber line that will come. And they put on an end here. It's already pre-connectorized how it comes from Corning. And they'll run it into a house and they'll pull it, they call it a fiber smart jack. So into that fiber smart jack there, we'll get one of these plugged in. And it's the modem. And that's where it converts from fiber to Ethernet in the back of here. And it's got the latest and greatest Wi-Fi technology. And I think the new ones come with the Wi-Fi 7, I believe. This is a Wi-Fi 6 version. And I'll go in here and you'll have 4 Ethernet ports. And this will broadcast wireless through your house. And as Tom mentioned, if you want, we do rent Wi-Fi extenders that just marry onto this thing. And the technician, when he comes to your house to do an install, will do what we call Wi-Fi mapping in your house at no cost. We do it with all our installs to make sure you have equal service levels throughout your whole house. So everyone's streaming and playing video games or doing telehealth, so you want to make sure you don't have any dead spots. You want to make sure when the modem's installed, it's on the main floor of your house so you got equal coverage throughout there. So we want to make sure your experience is seamless on day one of that install. Now, we don't want a tech to have to come back and forth, and we don't want folks not having good service, right? So But this is what you get, there's no charge to this, and then you can always get your own, Eero or Orbi, your own Wi-Fi extender instead of renting ours for like $10 a month. You can buy them on Amazon or Best Buy, and they're yours, right? If you switch providers or if you already have existing ones, you can use those on that. They're compatible with all this good stuff. What I didn't show you, I brought this. So this is where it all starts, and as Tom mentioned, from our central office. So this stuff is in our office and goes out to the streets because it starts with electronics. And in our office, it all goes underground and then comes up where it goes aerial, or if it stays underground, if the development is underground. So these are what we call splitters, and we have little beige boxes that the fiber comes up from underground, and they're either size of 432s or 864s, depending on the size of the area that we serve. And there's a total of 14 unrelated units, just over, not mistaken. So we size it accordingly how Ma Bell back in the day distributed to the telephone. So maybe you could have 100 houses out of one PFP box or 200. But what a little beige box is either pole mounted or pad mounted. And then these will be inside those as well. So it's what you have on one end will be on the other. So it marries from the fiber connection box in your neighborhood to our central office. So this is basically what it is. And when the technician comes, it's all just plug and play stuff. There's no splicing and everything's pretty much pre-connectorized. And this is the technology that we use. So just kind of wanted to share that, and so everybody kind of had a better understanding of how things work. This is where technology is at, and our stuff is actually expendable to 25 gigs.
Nice.
And once we put up the fiber, just like we did copper back in the 30s and 40s, this copper technology is here to stay probably for the next 60, 70 years. So once it's up, all the upgrades are done on our end, not on the taxpayer's ends or on a homeowner. We worry about maintaining it, upgrading it, and getting you the latest and greatest technologies as we have over the years. We started with the telegraph. We're 150 years old next year, right? I wasn't born when the telegraph was around, but I can. I got some stuff, from the museum that I collect, and we've always maintained it. When Randy and I worked out in the field, we worked up on poles and underground. We took pride in maintaining it, and we passed that on to the guys who still work with us. They're our peers now, so we own it. We're Ma Bell, and be happy to take any questions.
And it was back.
So let me ask any folks, the residents, if they have a question, please raise your hand. Judy, go right ahead.
A number of questions. What happens in our situation when there are 5 people on our block and 4 of them don't want to do this?
That doesn't make any difference. Nope. It'll be available to anyone. You don't have to subscribe to it, but everybody else will benefit because Charter, if they stick with Spectrum or they stick with some other service like a fixed wireless, they're going to get a better rate.
Okay, that's one question. Second question, we have a landline.
Mhm.
I will not get rid of my landline.
Okay.
At all. However, our experience with AT&T service on our landline, while your service people are fabulous, you don't maintain them, you Band-Aid them. And so every time there's a high wind or a lot of rain or a squirrel, we have to call AT&T. They have to go through all the routing to figure out which pole the line's on. Then they fix it temporarily until the next incident, because AT&T is not doing anything with its equipment. But this would take care of that if you guys maintain them. And based on our experience, I'm not sure.
So we're bound by the PUCO, the service level agreements. No other providers are, because they're not in the we're a utility, they are not. So we're a registered utility with the state of Ohio.
Mhm.
Spectrum, the other fiber
First
company.
Energy.
Yeah,
whatever.
First Energy and AT&T, they're only registered utilities that have service level agreements with the PUCO. So when it comes to your case, they regulate how long we have to repair your phone, to get it, whether it's service affecting or out of service. And back from when Randy and I started as technicians, it was 24 hours. The PUCO kind of loosened regulations because home phones have gone to the wayside, and now I think it's 48 hours, I believe, maybe 72. Don't quote me, and I think that's what it is. But when our guys go out to fix it, in our defense, I can't fight with squirrels. That's what they do. They chew our stuff. They chew everybody's stuff to make except power.
Are they gonna chew this up too?
I hope not.
All right.
So I can't control squirrels, but we do come out and fix it. We have service level agreements as well. We shared that with Tom and the village. We stand by our product. We fix stuff with fiber. It is a pulse of light, where copper is conductive. So when this gets chewed up, you actually have to. It's a lot easier to troubleshoot with the time deflect remain return meter, and we call them OTDRs. And it'll tell us a pinpoint, the way technology and stuff is at now. It will give us the exact footage where the problem is at to address the problem. So it's not a crapshoot. You're not going out there and, but the meters we had back when we first started for dial tone weren't tech savvy. Where technology's at today, it'll pinpoint it to the phone.
So even having this, I don't have to give up my landline.
No.
Okay.
No. That's yours. I'm gonna warn you though, prices on landlines are going up.
I know because AT&T doesn't want to take care of them. So, I understand that. And this is just for cell and Wi-Fi.
Fiber?
Yes.
No, you can get telephone on it too. You can get a VoIP telephone. You can get a home phone on it too.
But it would be digital.
Correct.
It wouldn't be my landline.
Correct. So if the power goes out, do you have phone still?
Yes, because I've got a landline.
Is it a cordless phone?
No, we have one that is not.
Okay. So we have one.
I mean,
Yeah, no, you're right. You're 100% right. No, you are in, I love you because I used to work with folks like you all the time. And those days are, folks of having that technology now are far and few. And everybody's kind of done this, but there's solutions for technology, those battery backups. Our stuff, if the power goes out and you have a battery backup, your phone will still work. Or you still have stuff, but you have to purchase a battery backup. That's where technology, just like a cell phone will still work if power goes out, because the tower just
up to the point, and then the tower goes out.
Yes. Well, we have backup generators at our towers. We also have first responder networks. Our towers take priority. So we've always had that responsibility for the first responders and government. So those are great questions, Ned.
Well,
Yes, sir.
If the utilities to your home are currently all coming underground, what do you do?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
If the utilities coming to your house,
Mhm.
your cable, your electric, everything is underground, what do you do? There's no lines.
We follow suit. So if our stuff is underground right now, we follow with underground. If our stuff's aerial, we go aerial. So if you're in a subdivision with buried utilities, we stay in the same path in our easements, and we stay in that path. So we're in private utility easements, or sometimes we'll go in the public right away. It's rare, but we stay in utility.
It is not additional cost.
No,
to
no.
go underground.
No, there isn't. So just so I'm clear too.
That question.
Yeah. So some providers charge extra for service drops too. We do not. Everything is in kind when you order service, from to the installation to the wiring, everything. Technicians are great, and if you have questions and concerns, you can ask them when they're at your house, and they will take care of it for you right there on the spot. We've always been good about that.
It's 1,000-foot drop is included. Is that the?
Well, it's more, whatever.
It's more than that.
Yeah, whatever the length is.
Okay.
There may be some that are more, but those may be special order on our end. But we'll have to get this. We keep up to 1,000 in the garages. I think we're up to what, 2,000? We are 2,000 foot drums.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody else have questions?
What do you get them to start sooner?
We got to sign a contract. Yes.
Yeah, so about that timeline, what would happen next? You have council review and vote. Roughly when would that take place?
Well, following this, council will deliberate. We could vote as early as this month to begin next month. If we don't feel like we're ready, we'll wait.
Would you try to kind of reach out more to the Moreland Hills, to people in the community to see, kind of gauge what they're doing?
That was our intent this evening. We also we had a meeting last night, and we discussed doing some more reach out on our website, as well as posting this presentation and asking for feedback.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, and I wanted to preface, we had fiber and other residents, and I'm so happy the discussion's being had. It's a really much better technology relative, we really liked it. The 1 million, 1.1 million, how does that happen? How does that payout happen? What does it look like to the town?
Well, one of the only things we've really been negotiating with AT&T, the big thing we've been negotiating is that payment plan. So we establish milestones, and when they achieve a deployment milestone, they get payment. So it's not like we just hand them the 1.1 million. It would be, oh, you're finished with engineering, you've ordered supplies, maybe that's the first milestone. So that's what we've been negotiating now.
And I can give an example. We just, we're doing one in the city of East Cleveland. I don't know if we teamed up with the governor's office and they wanted ubiquitous coverage in their 12,000 living units is what we're wiring up. So we did milestones. We say, hey, some money to start. And we're 25%, milestones done, 50%. And then when we're completely done, the final payment. So we don't ask for it all up front. But nice part is as we're building it out and we finish those areas, you can order the service. You don't have to wait until the end. So as we continue to work through these and offline, I can give you a little bit more info. But we give a 2-year timeline to cover ourselves because we just don't know with logistics. Sometimes it could happen with, but we invest in Corning fiber, so we don't see a fiber shortage coming. We use in a buried subdivision, we won't put pedestals up. We use handholds. And they're just little flat covers that serve about, depending how space the homes are, typically 3 to 4 homes is what we serve with one handhold. Randy and his team do a great job coming behind. The contractors that we use to will restore the areas once we are done making a mess. So there's going to be a little bit of a mess, in the front lawns. We're going to dig some, they're going to bore like that machine showed. And that's just in the buried subdivisions. And we'll restore stuff back to it was, or even better than when it was. There was some seed down and straw. And if you don't like it, let us know. We're local, right? All of our guys are local. Our construction guys are based out of Cleveland as well. We got your installers are going to come out of Highland Heights. They're local as well. So AT&T has got 2,000 employees in the state of Ohio. So we're all local folks. And I'm probably going to spearhead the project. So I always leave my contact information behind us, as is my colleague, Randy. We want to make sure everybody's happy and things are seamless, right? There's going to be some disturbances here and there, but that's to be expected, right? So
There's another point on what you said. It is a one-time expenditure that the village would make. We're not committing to ongoing operating expenses for the village. So once we've been able to, over the 2 years that we pay that off, it doesn't increase our ongoing expenses. So we're not going to be asking for our residents to be continuing to pay for it.
That's what I was going to ask. So right now, the village has the money to pay for this. It's a question of, do we do this? Like, where do we invest some of the money that we have?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
and the overages we cover too, right? And what we have. So if there's overages and any, that's on AT&T. We committed, to what our proposal was with Tom and the village, and that's on us, and to maintain it as well.
What the 1.1 million is doing is getting them over the financial hump. So the cost to pass makes sense for their financial spreadsheets.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why there's no ongoing cost. We just need to get them to pass the homes so they can serve them.
Yeah, I was just my final point, just as a point of kind of devil's advocate to this, or things in my mind that I'm thinking of. It is something where, we're paying a company that has a good product, rather than, allowing the company to make its profits as it does. So the town is paying the company that's already going to be profiting from the situation. Sometimes the public funds, it's hard sometimes to swallow that.
I mean, if you don't mind, I can talk about that, right? So we've had Spectrum largely in the village for a long time. They're the sole company.
Right.
Other companies like AT&T have had the opportunity on their own to come and compete against Spectrum, but haven't, right? So this is why I think the incentive is good. And I think the prices that we are all paying for anyone who has broadband internet right now are paying for less speeds or almost double this. So while the village is spending public funds, all of our funds to do this, it's to encourage this competition. And based on their price sheets, it would almost cut everybody's in half the rate that they're paying. It depends on when you got in with Spectrum, if you have Spectrum, but it could cut your rates in half. And otherwise, now that you have competition, the Spectrum has competition, their rates could also drop. So while collectively we would be spending $1 million, collectively our rates would all go down, and we would recover that within a few years. And the $1 million spend is not out of the realm of what Moreland Hills has done every handful of years. We don't spend it every year on projects, but we typically have a large project about every other year, and a project of this size maybe over 5 years, over about 5 years.
I appreciate the comment. I saw that. I understand that. That's
Yeah.
good enough. I appreciate it.
I just want to add real quick, if I could. One thing that's always important to council, and obviously the mayor as well, is our treasurer being behind an expenditure like this, a project like this. And he has assured us that we have very healthy, amongst the best in the state, balances in number of accounts, and that we have not only do we have the funds, but we would still have sufficient balances afterwards. That God forbid another COVID or something like that happened, it wouldn't put us in dire straits. It's got our treasurer seal of approval, so to speak, which was important to us. Anytime we make this kind of expenditure.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that too. It's going to hit every house, so it's not like we're just paving one road to benefit some people. This is going to be for everyone. I know. Tom had the map up. There are some areas that just have. I mean, where I live on Giles, Rick lives on Giles as well.
Shouldn't tell people that.
Whatever. Whatever we have, if you do the test, it never comes up to that. So, I think it would be a good option. And to Steve's point with our budget, the village has always been very conservative, and we do get to a point where we have a nice reserve, but what are we saving? So when we can make a large expenditure and still have plenty, because part of it is to spend it, not just save it, and find ways that we can benefit. So that's
And benefit everyone.
yes.
Yeah. Make the villages, make your lives better day to day. Much better service.
Trust me, this was a big topic. Was $1.1 million. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, because I totally agree with the investment side of it. It really was just the idea that, this is a company that will profit regardless. And so we're, as a public, kind of contributing to that. But I understand that on our own end, that we are also looking to profit and make an investment that will come back to us.
Right.
And I get that.
Right. Well, and because they are business, they're not a nonprofit. So
No, yeah.
that's something, being small, that's why other companies have come through. They're like, yeah, we'll happily hook you. So
Just to add a little meat and potatoes to that conversation, our return on investment on stuff like that and build has been about 20 years. We don't see that profit right off the rip, and it depends on the number of subscribers we get. So there is no layup here for us, right? We're still investing a few $1 million in this as well.
Yeah, I was going to point out the total cost is, I think it's 3.3 or 3.5 million to do this project, the total estimated cost. So AT&T is investing the rest of that, and their risk, I've seen Charter is more commercial. As soon as we announced this big fiber build across 13 counties in southeastern Ohio, Charter came in and tried to lock everybody up into 5-year contracts, offered really sweetheart deals to them. So that when our fiber got there, like, well, yeah, I'd love to do it, but I'm already with Charter for the next 3.5 years. Yeah. They are really aggressive. So AT&T takes that execution risk as well of, yeah, it's a better product, but if Charter came in and locked you into a deal, it's going to slow down.
Yeah, that's a good point, because when Spectrum came in here, they showed up at one of our council meetings and they said, oh, turns out we actually have fiber that we can run to your house. Like, oh, really? We didn't know that. And they're like, yeah, but they don't run it. They won't run it for free and do the drop. it was something like $3,000 to $5,000 per person to, or maybe it was more than that, right?
It was more than that. Well, somebody had estimates and they wouldn't
They wouldn't actually give us a number.
And I was going to say, we asked them the question very pointedly. Did you see our RFP come out? Yes, we did. Why didn't you respond to the RFP then? You had a chance to do that. It would seem if you had fiber everywhere in the village today, which is what they said. They said they have fiber everywhere right now, which I'm not sure if that's true or not. Our engineer doesn't think that's true, but let's assume it's true. They said, we do not want to do business against ourselves. So in their minds, putting fiber, investing in fiber in Moreland Hills would mean they're getting rid of their lock that they have on all of our residents, which to me is just, no way. So that to me is the role of council to overcome that kind of thinking. Yeah, okay, so we're investing to kind of get, as Tom said, look, get them over the hump, any of this, right, over the hump to come here. But it's a seed money to get us better competition later on for the tactics, I'll say, that some will take advantage of if not checked. So that's the way I look at it as well. And that just did not sit well with me at all. Because we said, well, we even talked about whether we should let them back in. One, that's not, again, it's against public bidding. We can't do that. They had a chance to respond. They didn't. We can't then open up the door again. But we talked about it because they were saying that they're here, right? They're here already. Well, maybe we should be thinking about this. When we talked about it, well, like, they didn't offer anything that would be as advantageous as what we got with these packages, where they're just going to bring it to your house. Part of the deal. Everything comes to your house. I don't think they would come with as good of a deal because they know their business model doesn't allow it. You know what I mean? They have that lock already. They're not going to compete against themselves. That's all her answer was. She kept saying that again and again. We're not going to compete against ourselves. What does that mean? What does that mean for our customers? For your customers? They don't get better service? No, they don't. They don't get better service, right?
So to give some background to it and AT&T's proposals, and I've been part of that. Since COVID hit and there was CARES Act money, ARPA dollars that went towards broadband, every municipality and county got a little tranche of government funding for broadband. Each city, municipality, county decided on their own what they were going to do with it. Pay down debt. It was earmarked for certain things you can use it for. So Cleveland had put out an RFP. City of Cleveland did. Cuyahoga County did, which I believe Moreland Hills is Cuyahoga County. And when Cuyahoga County put out their RFP for broadband, Armand Budish decided to address the inner suburbs around Cleveland, which was Maple Heights, Garfield Heights, Lakewood, Brooklyn, Parma, with a nonprofit called PCs for People. Now, was Moreland Hills even in a conversation? I don't know, but I didn't think so. But we pointed that out, that Gates Mills is part of Cuyahoga County. There's Moreland Hills. So you guys are rural part of Cuyahoga, but yet underserved. And it was Spectrum only and us that we're trying to get this area served, and we're bidding to get areas that the FCC mapped served as well. So we said, they earmarked $20 million for broadband in these areas in Cuyahoga County. AT&T was willing to invest $400 million in these areas in Cuyahoga. And I know because I was part of that bid process like this. And we didn't get it. They decided to go with a corporate wireless solution, which is now, I don't know where it's at. And it was PCs for People. I don't know if you ever heard of them. They're a nonprofit that does refurbished computers and we went into the internet service providing business and has done some work in some of these suburbs. And I don't speak ill of my competitors. They're in the game and they're trying. And I believe throughout all those cities, they have 540 customers. Last time I checked, I talked to my peer there. So out of all the residents that could get their service, and it's CBRS wireless technology, it's not even fiber. So
I know you wanted to ask a question. I want to make a couple points that I'd like you to ask your question. I guess to follow up on what Rick said about Charter, they are saying that they're going to make investments in 2027, but that's 2027. And who knows if they're really going to do it. But if they do it, it'll just bring more competition. And those investments will not be the same technology that AT&T is doing, because they're gonna have their coax and they're gonna run fiber off the coax. That's really what they're gonna do. The other
hybrid, right, John?
Yeah,
hybrid.
Yeah. The second point I'd just like to make is that we're a small village, and we have to rely on companies. We can't operate these things ourselves. We do a lot of sharing with other villages. I don't know, you residents, because you're here, I know you're probably active and you're watching what we're doing, you're interested. We share all kinds of resources with Pepper Pike. We share with Bentleyville. We share with Chagrin Falls, Solon, Orange. We do as much as we can because we're small. We can't operate a lot of these things on our own. We could never operate our own internet service. And some large municipalities can. They can say, you know what, I'm not going to go to someone like AT&T. I'm going to build it myself and I'm going to operate it. But that's just not in the cards for, a tiny village like Moreland Hills.
Well, that kind of brings the question of economies of scale.
Yeah.
When we issued this RFP to a lot of ISPs, AT&T was one of 2 respondents to it. And I know it can kind of gall you sometimes to say, we're going to give $1 million to AT&T, this corporate behemoth, right? It's a little annoying. I get that. But it's because telecom is an economy of scale game. Way back in 1984, the U.S. Justice Department broke up AT&T because they'd become a monopoly. And since then, in the 40 years since then, AT&T has largely reassembled its monopoly because the economies of scale of buying materials, hiring labor, managing networks, all these things in the telecom world, it's very capital intensive, really leveraged by economies of scale. That's why we end up with Spectrum and AT&T, 2 global behemoths competing with each other. We tried to run as a village ISP. We're going to be toe to toe with global behemoth. It's like, you don't want to be in that competitive space. So I get the resistance to giving AT&T money. I totally understand that. But the benefits to the community, I think, are just really tremendous.
Eric, you got a question?
So when we speak about there would be competition once fiber is laid in, would any of those competitors need to run fresh fiber, or would they be able to capitalize on the fiber that's already laid and basically lease out the infrastructure there? How does that work? Like, if Spectrum wants to come in and say they don't actually have fiber everywhere, would they then have to go and string stuff everywhere willy-nilly as well?
So because of national security and when our infrastructure set up is proprietary to us, we just don't lease it out to anyone.
So
They would have to
competition
invest in
would-
their own infrastructure.
Okay. So any competition would be weeks and months or possibly years of more infrastructure building. If they decide to
There's
do it.
existing competition, right? Because the competition will be coaxial versus.
Yeah.
Sure,
It'll lower the price.
But it's not like with wireless. It's just buy a box, go to T-Mobile, buy a box, slap it in your house. Boom, you got 300 up, 300 down. Today. But for fiber, they would have to do stuff.
They run it on their coax. Or they take what I understand is they'll take their coax and they'll put a box there in front of your house and they'll run fiber from the coax to your house. But it's still going to go back to the coax. I'm not a technology person, but that's sort of what I understood from what they were telling.
So you'd be much more capped on the high.
Yes.
End.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Given that AT&T is already building in the village, I don't believe the map you showed is current because AT&T was in my neighborhood 2 weeks ago. So do we know what the current percentage of build out in Moreland is? And while you're thinking of that, what would be the estimated percentage of build out by the end of 2027 if we did nothing?
So that's fluid, right? So right now we are at 58 living units, I think it was, Tom, that we had said we had in the village already, that we had just started. It was something minimal.
Right.
And then our planner. So, and to give you a breakdown of how it works now, we have a program management office that's based out of Atlanta, Georgia. And they pull data and costs are looked at once we turn wire centers, what we call green, to start serving new areas. Well, they'll look at cost per living unit, as Tom pointed out on his presentation, what it costs. So we balance it out because we have a 21 state footprint. So Moreland Hills doesn't stick out like a big suburb, or big major metros like Detroit or Chicago. So we focus on the major metros and then the surrounding suburbs. And if we see things that come in that have a low cost per living unit, we'll hit those first. And then on the back end of our build, because of the capital so much, we'll start doing that. And of course, underground areas is the most expensive because when you have to start locating, bringing a crew that knows what they're doing with what we call the ditch witch that buries the cable, so you're not digging holes in everybody's yard. That gets it doubles the cost of what it goes aerial on the pole. So when those guys look at it, as of now, we take it year to year because we budget per year And they just came out, they just started the 2026 bill. I think there might have been one additional distribution area, maybe another 100 living units in Moreland Hills. So it's minimal as we go. So Rome wasn't built in a day is the path we take. So we try to spread the wealth out, but out of all the Midwest states that AT&T has, Ohio's had the most investment, and we try to spread it out because we have the Toledo market, Cleveland market, Akron, Canton, Youngstown, Columbus, Dayton. So there's a lot of markets to hit and only so much capital to spend. So here's a minute. We'll go ahead.
And I just wanted to give a little bit of additional information. Your question is we're about 5% penetration right now in Moreland Hills. And by the end of 2027, with our projected build, we're looking at going to be less than 20%, right? So if we're lucky, we'd probably be closer to 15% by the end of 2027. If nothing, that's if you did nothing, right? And as we mentioned, there's a cost analysis that takes place everywhere we build. My engineering office gets calls every day from different municipalities that are looking to, they feel like they're held hostage by one provider and they want to increase coverage and open up different opportunities to the residents. So we have to look at that. And as we build, even the advantage, and I understand the 1.1 million is a concern to residents, as it would be to me as well. The village, though, is securing ubiquitous coverage for everybody, 100%, which if we did it on our own, that would not happen for years, 5 to 7 years from now. So they are securing that coverage to cover all of the residents in Moreland Hills, which is huge.
Provided they want to go with AT&T.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not shared line.
Well, correct, but every resident will have the option if they choose to do so, and the residents that don't will benefit from the healthy competition that we had mentioned, right? Because as soon as another option is opened up, that's when the competition really steps up their game and wants to lower prices for you.
And we've seen some of that.
But if we were to do the build, I've worked a couple RFPs, Tony and I prioritize them in my engineering and in the construction area. So we would prioritize this. Like we gave you the timeline of what we were looking to build at, but this would be prioritized to hopefully complete sooner than that. And I mean, it is definitely an investment worthwhile. We're investing as well in a lot of these areas where the footage of the fiber, may outweigh the amount of residents that are on a street. We may omit that from our design, and then we may go to a higher coverage area. By going this route, we're guaranteeing it to everybody. No matter how far you live, if you have 1,000-foot driveway, we will get you service there at no additional cost than what we agreed on.
And I'd also note, like there are communities, I mentioned in my introduction, there's communities around us that have decided to invest. Tom put some of them up on the screen. Some of their timelines are much longer than ours. And I think it makes Moreland Hills a more attractive place to live. I mean, there's a lot of professional people that live in Moreland Hills that really need high-speed internet. There's a lot of people that work at home and need that coverage and that reliability. And it raises property values and the desirability of this village. And to have it sooner rather than later, to me, is a great thing.
It's just back in the napkin math, though, it comes out to 1,400 homes at 1.1 million is 785 per house. So taking 20% off of that by the end of 27, it's $220,000 less because of the fewer homes we'd be covering. But that's a lot of sort of wiggly hand-wavy.
I'm sure that's also the less desirable homes, right?
Right. So it's going to be the ones that see the end of Charles, perhaps.
Yeah.
Is AT&T reclaiming copper? Is there any benefit to that, or is it because you guys are just over?
We are, but we have to wait until, we're regulated on that too. And we have to wait until folks disconnect their service to do that. And that's only in certain situations that are like feeder cables coming from our central offices.
Nothing in the aerial.
Nothing in it.
Sure. It's only from manhole to manhole. And a lot of our old trunk cables that ran from central office to central office, those are the ones that we're reclaiming right now.
Yeah, because it's all fiber now that communicates between offices and trunks and all that. 911, all that good stuff. But the nice part with AT&T though, and I'm not a sales guy, I don't pretend to be one either. We have national pricing, right? what you see on the website is what you get. And when you bundle stuff too, if you got our cell phones, for being a loyal customer, you save money in that too, with, paperless billing and auto pay. So what you see up there too, there are additional cost savings. And I think, now I'm going to tell you, everybody sees our stuff that we sell 5 gig service. Don't get it. Okay. You're going to pay $150 a month for something that you're going to do speed tests on. And there's not even hardware that even supports that yet. Ethernet does. We could sell it to you if you want. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to see her. I'm going to get it, and then you're going to do a speed test. They lied to me. I'm like, a lot of the Ethernet wireless stuff does not support 5 gig yet. It's mainly 1 gig, and that's sufficient. Even the 300 to stream your movies or do Zoom meetings, that's sufficient. And for $55 a month, I mean, that's what I have at my house. My kids all play Xbox or whatever stuff they look at, but TikTok or whatever.
Yes, Judy. Let you ask question. Then
Oh, no, thank you.
oh, you're on.
So, will there be no dead zone in the village?
That's totally different technology. So if you're talking wireless with cell phone coverage, that's something completely different. As far as fiber goes, everybody will be able to order every single living unit.
So it depends on the individual service that we subscribe, which will take care of the dead zone.
Correct. So when you do get fiber, so who's your parent?
You are.
Okay. When you have fiber, you can go to Wi-Fi calling in your house or go to a cell store with fiber and get a cell phone booster inside your house.
We have a booster.
Okay. So when you plug that into your internet stuff, it'll give you more stronger coverage. It'll give you like 4 or 5 bars in your house. My parents have one. I got one for their house.
But down near the end of our drive on our street, we're a dead zone.
Correct. So cellular service is quirky. So if there's hills and valleys, depending on where the tower's at, the bottom of where if the tower's up here and you live down here,
right,
that's going to be a dead zone. That's just the way the technology works. Now, we want to know for that stuff because our engineers will look at that. And sometimes what they'll do is what we call small cells. We'll build a small cell to hit houses. If it makes sense. There's a large number of houses that have a dead zone. Our engineers will drive out and do testing.
There are not that many houses.
Okay.
You got the Metro Park across the street and then
your best bet is to stick with what you have. If it's out there, are you getting like one bar? Are you able to get calls? You can call within your.
Yeah.
Judy, a year and a half ago, we had Verizon committing to put a small cell tower at the corner, very close to you, right there. And then they backed off, and we don't even hear from them now.
So it's a similar struggle, right? It's like getting data to people's houses, whether it's by fiber and by line or trying to attract the providers to put additional towers in to resolve these dead zones. So it's definitely something the council has talked about because it's something that's important to the residents.
But now 5G.
If I invest in this little area, how does it affect my business? They all do that math.
There might be 50 people that have, cell service down in that area, but if only 20 of them are Verizon, are they going to spend, and even probably 50 people isn't even enough to make a jump to do anything.
Yeah, to give you an idea, we don't own many towers. We just lease space on them. Crown Castle, American Tower own most of these towers. It's about a little over $1 million. Because we put backup generators on them. There's, fiber. They're all fiber ran. But when you go to 5G and a millimeter wave, that signal, even when you get faster speeds, it doesn't go as far as LTE does. So as we get better technology, it's at shorter distances. It doesn't penetrate walls like it does. It's bandwidth because everybody's got a cell phone and wants to stream stuff and send pictures and do all that. So as we continue to work with these cell tower companies, we want to know where these dead spots are at to try to address them now. Like everybody's got to make business sense for us to invest $1 million. And will any cell phone company, I'll be honest with the public, buy houses? No. The small cell solution would probably be the easiest thing, but that's about $400,000 or $500,000 just to do that solution. So, which is half of a tower, but like I said, the inside wireless booster, and it depends which brand you get and which one you have that plugs into your fiber. You'll notice a significant difference in the house. And like you said, it'll probably work to your driveway, end of the driveway, because the house is where it's made for. But at least it helps if it falls in the house.
I'd like to, I just thank all of you for coming. And I'd also like to ask you if anybody has any additional questions or concerns. If someone has concerns about the direction that we're thinking about, I'd really like to hear that.
Sorry,
Just
no,
about-
I actually don't. There's a question in the chat.
Oh, there is.
So sorry.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So yeah, that's all I was gonna say.
Yeah, how'd you see that email?
No, I didn't. I got it.
Someone texted?
Yeah.
Okay.
There may be more questions. I don't know. I didn't have the one.
I can't see.
Would there be an option to bury everywhere instead of some above ground is the question.
I'll let you answer that.
You know the answer. And the follow-up to that is cost our barrier.
Yeah, cost is the barrier too. I
Because
know.
it seems like it would be a longer-term solution.
But it's not cost, it's time.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
and invasiveness, so, we talked about that, and, if the person could hear me online, right, so we talked about the benefit of that, and, one of the reasons we thought that it wasn't quite worth the invasiveness and the time and the cost, was that the rest of our utilities are primarily above ground. So if you're already losing, let's say, power, then losing the fiber or keeping the fiber means nothing because you've already lost power. So that's kind of where we came to it, and the rest, because the rest of the utilities are above ground, that's kind of.
Yeah, I'll add to that a little bit just because, so my day job, I'm a tunnel engineer, so I do. So I obviously like underground solutions. And I was actually very much in favor of Chagrin Valley Gig at the outset because of that, because they were going to go all underground. We've got 40 rigs. We're going to go all underground. Like awesome, all underground. But the problem with that is that Tom already pointed out some of it. It is invasive. There are what do you call it, handholds and vaults and stuff like that. There may be issues whenever you go underground. There's no guarantees, right? You have to bore. You don't know what you're boring into. I think the cost element of it really, not just from installation, but then repair. Because then once it's underground and you can't see it. And so then to dig up the yard and dig up the, like, if a little bowl or whatever, is chewing on the lines underground, and then you got to find out what that is. You may be able to locate it, but then you're digging up the yard again. I think all of those kind of like cumulative factors just put us towards, and then the fact that to get the underground solution, this was really the killer. We'd have to wait 5 years to get it because that's when they get around to getting to us. That was the real killer. But that's the downside of underground, though. Really, it's just the if you don't see it, but you also don't see it. You know what I mean? It's sort of like the double-edged sword. Like you have to like find it.
They're contending with the other utilities in the public right of way too. We're already in the easement. They'd have to go on the public right of way because they don't have a right to that private utility easement. Then you got gas, water, and sewer, and then if they hit one of those, and your basement backs up.
Yeah. In my yard, I had repair of my ditch. We all have ditches in our yards, right?
Yeah.
The gas line is so close to the bottom of the ditch, they actually hit it and knocked out the gas to my neighbor's yard. Like there are things that we don't, like that's just an example. Like, they just didn't realize it was right there. It was, 3 inches below the bottom of that ditch. I mean, some of these utilities, like you don't know where they are. So it is much more complicated. It will extend the timeline just by the nature of it because they will find things they don't know how to deal with. And then they have to deal with that versus what you can see on the lines, latching the lines.
Am I correct that if it's for above ground utilities that you guys, like when it's the drop to the house, you guys remain responsible for maintaining the cost of the above ground, but if it's below ground, there's the homeowner's responsibility, or you would also maintain responsibility for below ground?
Service drops on us.
Service drops on us, on you guys, whether it's above or below ground.
Everything
Okay.
to the house, inside the house, we have to kind of look at it. If something malicious was done, we usually look the other way and fix it. But everything to the house, we take care of.
Okay.
The demarcation point is the box that's on the side of the house.
This one,
Yeah.
So tree falls on somebody's fiber drop, and you guys come and
100%.
Yep.
Does AT&T have a community or communities that you think might be comparable to ours? 'Cause to Judy's point, and to your response for kind of chipmunks, just for example, we have a lot of chipmunks here. We have a lot of fauna. We have
Moreland and Northern Ohio are
Yeah.
nemesis.
right.
I mean,
We're in the snow belt. We get a lot of wind. We get a lot of we've got a lot of storm. And I know maybe the one slight disadvantage that I've read over time, even though the optic is far superior as far as signal and everything else, it's not as you can look at it. You know, the big band of copper is not is a lot sturdier than the thin fiber. So I guess just with that in mind, knowing the kind of semi-rural community we have with all those kind of challenges, are there other communities where you've installed and you know it's kind of like a good example?
Yeah, I can jump in, and actually one of your closest neighbors, Solon. So yeah, we've got a lot of fiber in Solon at this point, and our the damage from the squirrels and different things is really minimal. It's very minimal. Like Tony had mentioned a little bit, our restoral time when it comes to fiber, our restoral time, my commitment for major restoral time is 6.5 hours.
Okay.
So it's not even the 24 hours that it used to be. So we're out there right away. For some reason, and I think Corning has changed their formula in their sheeting to where squirrel will chew anything, but there was some stuff that was in the old polypropylene copper cable that it really attracted the squirrels. I think it was even Honda went through it for a while with their wire loom in their cars, and it was
a little oil. Something in the face, teething. You know where I'm at?
Yeah.
Hello.
And believe it or not, the fiber is much more resilient to a squirrel chew. The problem with copper is it is a corrosive metal, right? As soon as anything opens up that sheath and that water gets in there and it starts to corrode, it's game over. And we've got crosstalk, you can hear your neighbors talking and things like that. Not so much. Water can get into a fiber cable and that light's still transmitting. So the repair cost is on our end is about 70% less on fiber as it is with copper. And the good thing, that little fiber is not the only thing hanging. We are putting it tight against that thick copper. And there's a thin piece of stainless wire that you can't even see from the ground that's holding it there. So it is very secure when it comes to wind and things like that.
So squirrels go through a teething thing. As you can see, the copper has metal aluminum sheathing around.
Yeah.
This has plastic. So what holds our wire up is that thick metal strand that holds the copper and the fiber that we overlash onto it. So they find relief in biting into this because it eases their gums, right? Just like a kid teething. Where this does not, and we don't get as many squirrel chews, believe it or not, on the fiber than like we do on copper. Now, it's not to say that they don't, because we just had a rodent in Rocky River get into a conduit and chew some fiber up. That was to a feeder box, and we had, like Randy said, and we get, when we get those outages, these guys are out there pretty quick because we have operations that they monitor. And then when the stuff starts going wrong, there's a smart home manager sees people's modems start going down. Not to say Big Brother's watching, but we see that we monitor our networks.
Sure.
See why our modems going offline, and when we see,
Black spot or something like a big area.
yeah. So whoever at the operations center gets these AI, everything's AI driven. Now we get these alerts.
And a text goes out to our management team and they get somebody just.
Oh yeah, they let us know real quick. So we're like, hey.
I forgot. I appreciate that. I forgot when I asked a question that I thought of meters for two ago.
While you think about it, Steve.
No, I got it. Is this a single mode or multi-mode, and is there fiber, and is there an issue of signal dispersion because of all the distances among and between?
Great question. That's a very technical question I can answer. You don't lose light decibel levels until 35,000 feet.
Okay.
Single mode, multi-mode is more for media stuff, like broadcasting TV stuff.
Okay.
We used that at the RNC when I private managed that with the radio back in 2016. So you'll lose a little bit of light. And that's why we strategically place these boxes in the light levels that we control from the central offices. I pulled from 3 different offices. So it doesn't exceed, most of them won't exceed 12,000 feet, but it's good to about 36,000 before you start losing light. And you won't get the speeds or those, because it's a pulse of light that comes through that. You won't, don't ever look into a fiber, by the way. It's actually can damage your eyes, but it's just a pulse of light that comes through that glass that creates that signal. And after that 36,000 feet, you lose the dB levels on that, and that's redrop, and then get, you know, the service that you're not paying for. So
Thank you.
When we engineer it, we strategically place the distribution boxes so it's well under that, just to ensure that you never have an issue.
Thank you.
So I'm hesitant to say this because I don't want to jinx myself, but we've had fiber between the buildings on campus at Orange School for over 20 years that I never had in the world.
well,
So break tomorrow.
that's why we like underground, keeping it in conduit to protect it.
That's where it is. Yeah.
And that's dark fiber there, right? I think that's Pepper Street.
But we own it.
Yeah, it's a dark fiber between the building, but then they provide the service. That was another thing too.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Range conduit is what we use, by the way, when we pull any of these boxes, go in the neighborhoods, right, Randy?
Yeah, 4-inch, and then was that
4 or 3.
we use 4?
Four.
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, if we can get away with 3, we typically use 4. But then when we go to the residents' houses, we usually use like 1.5 inches of, you know, small conduit. The smaller the better. It's less intrusive, the easier it is to bore.
Also, in one of the discussions we had with AT&T, it's my understanding while they're installing their cable, they will do some selective pruning if there's any existing trees that, because we know in Moreland Hills that's if you live in the trees, then the trees, you know, it's a blessing and a curse sometimes. So while they're going through.
Go ahead. So this is not a criticism, it's just a question. Brought it out because I haven't heard it asked. What is the reason why this wasn't put out as a something for the residents to vote on? And because we saw the map that said, you know, here's the speeds or whatever. Well, does anyone complain? I mean, not anyone. I'm sure people complained about speeds, but was this a driving need that we saw the need to fix, or is this something we're preemptively doing, and that's why it wasn't put out to a vote that new residents could decide to do or not? Obviously, it's a huge net benefit.
Yeah.
But is it something that was loudly requested?
It's something that when I first became mayor, I did a survey of all the residents, and it was a very significant factor on that survey that people felt like they didn't have good enough internet. And since then, I've heard many comments about it. And so council, we've been deliberating this for we've been working on this for months, but we've been deliberating this for quite a while. And then decided to do something about it because we've seen neighboring communities do it, and we're like, we're behind. You know, we need to get going on it. I think the investment level in it, it's not something that we would need to do a bond issue to go say, if we're going to do a bond issue, we're going to change our tax rates. We're going to, of course, we go to the villages with a vote, and we do that. On this, I mean, I let council talk. I didn't think it was at the level that required an actual ballot vote for it. I thought it's the elected council here and myself working on that with input from residents, and we've done a lot of reach out to ask residents what they think. We've invited them to come and give comment. That's sort of the approach we took, Eric.
It's within range of projects that we've done in the past. Yeah. The last one that I think was close to this was South Woodland, that repair, right? The failure on South Woodland for the retaining wall and the culvert.
Oh yes,
that got pretty close to $1 million. Didn't
that was pretty big. Yeah,
the conversion of the treatment plants to pump stations also was a project.
Yeah, we do a lot of infrastructure projects that, I mean, if we were gonna, you know, do one of those projects, we're like, we need that, and we budget for it and we do it.
And I guess I would add, Eric, to that answer that the thing we did deliberate about also was, you know, as Steve mentioned, the Prashant, our treasurer, keeps a very conservative, healthy reserves for the village, and that's great. And our bond rating is really high, and all those kinds of metrics that economists take. But we made we had the discussion, and I distinctly remember us talking about the fact that it doesn't do the residents any good for us to hoard money. You know, reserves are good and we have them. Once you get past a certain point, it becomes, we have to give this money back to the residents in some format, right? And this is a way to give it back to the residents because everybody, as has been said, is going to benefit from this. So it really felt like something that we were investing in the village, we were investing in the residents. It's their money going back to them as a service that they could lower their own monthly cost if they wanted to, get better competition, all those kinds of things. So we really looked at it like, you know, like I thought of it when we were talking about that, I thought of it as in my mind, it was like a cap. Like, all right, here's a reserve cap. I mean, reserves cap. Like we got to this much reserves. We don't need to keep building that reserve up anymore for no reason and just let that money sit there and not do any benefit to the residents. Just, you know, take their
If I may make a point just about that, I appreciate all the comments on that. Speaking of the reserve, though, if I recall, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, some time ago, we had a ballot issue because our reserves were low, and I think it was a 4 mil levy that we put on to refill our reserves, and that was.
It wasn't for that.
It was a safety levy to fund our police.
So what we were doing at the time was we were transferring money from the general fund to the police and fire fund, and that ballot issue was specific to the police and fire services.
I don't want to derail the.
No,
I would have sworn I recall that it was specifically because our reserves were lower. And it was before we bought the house on the hill and all that stuff, that reserves were lower. We were just looking to fill it back up. And there was specifically no sunset clause on that, but
there is no sunset clause on it. It's an approved continual levy specific to fire and safety.
Well, that's a good timing on that, I guess.
Well, right, and you'll see as you look at the transfer sheets each month, there's still money that's transferred each month from the general funds to the police pension funds because it's still
the contributions to the police pension funds have gone up. And there's proposals for it to go higher in Columbus. And we have to fund that. Columbus says you have to do it. The OPERS and the police fund said you have to do it, but they don't give us money to do that. So we still do transfer money. That's correct.
You know what it was that might be no. This is a good conversation, right? It's just very relevant to whether we can afford this, right? It was that there was changes in state law that reduced so it wasn't a reserve issue. There was changes in state law that also reduced the revenue. So that was the small. It was the state tax was one, and the second was the where's that? The local government fund.
Yeah. Local government.
So because of those two changes, that was the other reason. It wasn't that our revenues, or it wasn't that our reserves were down. It was that the revenues were going down because of those two changes in the way the state
money comes
funded
to us from the state.
Yeah, that's Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
All right, well, again, I think I can close unless anyone has any further questions.
I just have one quick question. The price that was up there for the monthly, how long is that good for? Is that?
I think you'd have to ask AT&T that they have the national price. There's not a guarantee for that price as far as I understand, but
it's just like
we raised rates. I think it was 2 years ago. We hadn't raised rates before that for like 6-7 years. We always run national promos with gift cards for customers and stuff like that. But yeah, we've been at that price point for a while. We don't plan on. I don't think we have any plans on raising anything. You know, we try to stay competitive, and you can see what the other providers are charging as well. So, you know, when you're an AT&T customer, you bundle stuff, like I said, the paperless billing and auto pay, it knocks money out too. So,
but that's not like a teaser where Spectrum says, "Oh, it's $40 and
no,
extra 78."
For 30 minutes.
Spectrum is we have a national pricing model, which is whatever the price is here is in California. We don't play those promo games. We hear the negativity about it. We got on it.
Thanks, Ralph. Consideration?
Alexander, did you raise your hand or were you just, okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you again. I would entertain a motion from any council person to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion adjourned by council person Jeanette Irish, last seconded by Councilman Fish.
This is why I never motion.
Long name, is that why? There we go.
I got an easy fish.
Mr. Everman?
Yes.
Mr. Fish?
Yes.
Mrs. Irish Glass?
Yeah.
Mr. Yaki?
Yes.
Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Thank you. I know a few people took off early, but thanks for coming and for the questions. We appreciate it. Randy, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Next time.
No worries, no worries.
I don't.
They were talking about
Two different.